Well, I finally got the covers panels for the switches and stuff for the instrument panel done and got those sent off. Well, I built them once because I didn't like the way the powder coat turned out, and then the two larger ones, the ones that cover the switches and the circuit breakers and the engine control or the heat controls, they just kept not turning out good after powder coating. It took me three more times to get them right. I finally got them right, got the labels all made up and got them sent off. When I'm working on the wing roots on the fuel gauges there, I took the fuel gauges off, took them all apart, cleaned the glass out, get new gaskets for them, and I got new BBs for them, the balls that float up and down to show you where the fuel level is on them. And I've got decals for them to put up there, but I don't think those decals will stick to this plastic that the headline or the side panels are made out of. And even if they did, I think it'd look like crap because this is pretty textured there, and get them on to sit right, I don't think they'd ever line up right. So I'm going to make a panel for each one of those to kind of back behind those fuel gauges that I can put that decal on for the fuel level. I took the fuel gauges all apart, I cleaned up the housing for it, and I powder coated the outside of it black. Lower elbows that come out of there are just hose elbows, or hose barbs that come out of there, and I cleaned those all up, and they've got they're soldered, full of solder with just a small hole through them to limit the amount of fuel that flows through there, so not a whole bunch will spill out or anything in case you get a crack in the glass or anything like that, I guess. But you keep them from surging too much too. But anyway, those are in the bottom, and the top had a little different setup, and I've got a different setup yet. I'm going to wind up with a better setup on them than what was originally on there. But that's all set on there now. That I've got a cardboard or a poster board template on there, and I'll use that to make a sheet metal panel to go on there that I can put the decal on. I like the way that template turned out so far. I screwed up on these when I first made these wing root panels, and I went to put those fuel gauges in there, and I got the holes in the wrong spot. I had them lined up with what the old wing roots were, wing root covers were, and they don't fit on this airframe at all. So I don't have enough of this Kydex to make new wing root panels. There's really nothing wrong with those, except for I got the holes for the fuel gauges in the wrong spot. So those little panels I've got there will work for two things. They'll hold the decal for the fuel level gauges, and then it'll also cover up those holes that I screwed up in there and made. So I still have to put those fuel gauges together. I've just got the elbows put in them now, so I can get the distances lined up and everything and marked out on them. I've got to put the glass in them. It's just a glass tube that goes in there. Then you've got to have new gaskets. The originals on those have cork gaskets on them, and of course over the years the cork gets so that it's not very resilient anymore, and it gets a groove in it, and then it won't seal very good. So I'm going to put new gaskets in it. The BBs that were in there, the balls that were in there, they'd faded out pretty bad, so I got new balls for them to put in there that are nice and bright. And of course the fuel will probably just melt the color off of those too, like they did the other ones. But I got the first little cover plate cut out and put up there, and it looks pretty good. It's fitted onto the fuel gauge pretty good, and it matches up the contour of the wing root cover there pretty good. I've got to take that off now and take the wing root panel off and locate those holes. There's holes along the bottom of the wing root panel that screws into that door sill. This is what it looks like on the back side of the wing root, on the inside or the outside or whatever. Anyway, here's the little hose barb. I've got a piece of 1/4 inch fuel line on that, a short piece on the inside of it to act as a spacer and to seal up around that hole where it penetrates through. And then there'll be a 1/4 inch hose that goes on this, and that can be pushed in tight against that to hold everything tight, and that'll go over to the lower line on the fuel tank. Up here we've got the elbow coming out of there, and that's just got a AN flare fitting on it, and then I've got this T on there, and that'll tighten up against it. I might have to put a washer or maybe an O-ring or something in there to pull that tight against that panel to tighten that up against it. We'll do that. And then this is a T, so the other one was set up with kind of a phony system with a hose barb on it, well actually a length of hose on it, and then this line was cut and it was spliced with a piece of 1/4 inch hose. So we'll have a little better setup with this. We've got this T on there, and I can actually put a flare fitting on that. I had it set up to put a hose on there, and I do have a hose barb that'll fit on that T fitting that has that same AN 37-degree flare on there that is the female that'll fit over that T, but I think I'll put one of those out here on this end, and I'm just going to go ahead and I think I'll just go ahead and put a flare fitting on that one, a nut. And this is what the plate looks like now. You can see I've got a piece of 1/4 inch fuel line put on there for a spacer. Then I can put another piece of 1/4 inch fuel line on this side. I just got this one on there just to hold it temporarily, but when I put the regular 1/4 inch fuel line on there and a hose clamp, that'll hold that tight with a nice space across there. And this side, see the fitting, we've got a fitting that goes from 1/8 inch pipe thread, which comes out of this elbow here, and then a AN flare fitting, and that's what this T fits on there. That goes through that hole. Well, I put a couple of O-rings on either side of that that can be compressed down and still make a tight fitting on that flare fitting. That'll tighten that up pretty nice. There's that cover panel mounted up on the wing root, and the fuel gauge mounted up in there. That's the way it's going to go. Well, that one's all cut out, bent properly, fitted up, holes fit up nice. I drilled some holes in it and put some nut plates on the back side of that Kydex panel, so we can put number 4 screws in there, hold that thing down. I got one hole on it on the forward edge about halfway up there. It's right where that dark mark is for the manufacturer's mark on that aluminum, and I've got a hole there, but that hole wound up lining up with a brace on the back side, and there's no way to get around that. So what I'll probably wind up doing is go ahead and drilling that out for a sheet metal screw and putting a sheet metal screw in that hole. Well, I got that same template marked up on that left wing root as I'd used on the right wing root, and it's going to work just fine for that. I set the fuel gauge on the inside, outside, whatever the hell it is of the wing root there. It'll be between the wing root and the wing itself, and marked out where the holes went for the inlet and the outlet of that fuel gauge. Drilled those out, and then I put that template up there to try it out, and it's going to work just fine to use for that left side. I'm going to have to do a little trimming on it because those 2 wing roots are a little bit different. This lower section here hangs down almost 1 inch on the back side and about 1/4 inch on the front side of what this one on this side did, and the top is up just a little bit higher than the top of the rib there, so we'll have to do a little bit of trimming on that, but anyway, that's coming along nicely. I've got this left panel here pretty well all laid out and holes drilled in it. The only thing I have left to do on this, I've got a little bit of work left to do on the edges to deburr those, to file them down, and got the holes drilled in it to hold it on. So it's pretty much ready to go, and then I've got to turn the edges over on it here. I'll have to mark out and do that on the bead roller here in a minute. So this is the left wing root cover here, and these holes here are the ones that I made in at first using the old wing roots as a pattern on it, and they're screwed up in the wrong place, so I had to redo it. And I've got this little hole in here and this hole here. See, they're almost lined up right, but not quite. Well, anyway, I've got that new holes in there, and this panel will cover up these old holes. And then I've got it drilled out for nut plates, and a little more careful this time on the location of all my little stringers and form pieces and stuff in there. I've got them all in there, so they'll clear those this time. Remember, on the right one I had one hole drilled in there that went right into one of the stringers. So anyway, we've got the nut plates put in here. Now these outside ones, I can just put them in with my rivet squeezer. Well, here's the rivet squeezer, and I've got it set up. This is one die here that I ground down several years ago to use to put Southco fasteners, the receptacles in, so that it'd fit down inside of them. And this works to get in there on these number 4 nut plates, because there's not enough room in there. Well, actually, this I put it in like this and use this one on the bottom to set the rivet, and then this one is one that I ground down to fit in those channels on the fuselage where we put nut plates in those, and that gives me lets me get this one centered on the rivet on the bottom, and then I can get on the top of the rivet here and get a good hold on it, because there's just not a heck of a lot of room in here. With these number 4 nut plates, there's just barely enough room to get in here. And see, I've got these little rivets, and I countersunk the other one, but I'd forgot that on this Kydex I don't really need to countersink it because it's soft enough that it'll just squish in. Well, it's probably better not to countersink it. Now I can get this head here and get it over close to that cleco, and get this anvil here centered on that rivet on the back side without interfering with that nut plate, that floating nut plate. Now I got to do that one just a little bit more, but that doesn't squish the nut plate down then to hinder that captured nut plate. Okay, now I'll go. Now these middle ones, my reach on my setter is not enough to get into those, so I'll do these 4 outside ones, 8 rivets here in the basement shop, and then I'll have to take these down to the shop and use the air riveter on these 2. Well, there's my left-hand panel. That looks pretty good. I think that'll be pretty nice. Now the decal will go on there showing the fuel level, and well, I can take these 2 both off now, take the protective coating off of them, and powder coat them black, and then I'll put the decal on them. I noticed on that other one I didn't think I'd be able to install these wing root covers, these bases of plastic with the sheet metal on there, but I put the right one on with that one on there, and it went on okay. So I got those plates powder coated, and they turned out really nice. Really nice. Wish they'd had that much luck getting those instrument panel covers the first time. These came out just perfect. Of course, I guess I learned a lot on those. But anyway, there's that fuel gauge mounted up there to that. This is on the left-hand panel. And this is the decal here for the gauge. That'll go in there just like that. Of course, it'll look a lot better once it's on there. you'll only have just the white of the decal on there instead of the background for the stickum. Anyway, that's it. This is the left side, and this is the way it'll be mounted up. You can see the T here, and then down here we've got the barbed end, and like I said, I've got a piece of 1/4 inch hose on that just to hold that on there for now. And this is what it'll look like when it's all together. That holds it off that panel a little ways, but that'll be okay. Anyway, well, here's the right one. I'll go on the opposite side, of course, like this. So anyway, it turned out really nice, really pretty. That gloss black from Eastwood, it's got some metallic in it or something. It shows up as a silvery spots in it or something there, but anyway, it looks pretty darn good. I'll get this one mounted up. I don't really need to mount these up now, but I guess I do have to mount it up because I'm going to have to position that decal in the right spot there and get it lined up where I want it. So this one's all on there. I've got number 4 screws in there with some nylon or UHMW washers underneath them, and they stick out in these nut plates just far enough with the washers on them. So anyway, I'm real happy with that. Well, there's the wing root panel, the fuel gauge panel with the decal on it for the fuel levels. We got 2 levels. We got for 3-point fuel when the airplane is on its tail wheel on the ground, and then level flight, which is going to be most of the time in this airplane, because even when it's on floats it's almost in level flight, but that's just kind of suggestion anyway. But I'd say that looks pretty good. I'll have to take the right side off and do the same thing with it. Well, there's the 2 plates with the decals attached to them. I'm not the best decal applicator that there is. They're not perfect, but there's a good chance that nobody but me will ever know that they're not. Well, anyway, they're on there.